Welcome back to Mr. Orth's Flipped Classroom for Grammar, a 9th grade look at adjectives and adverbs. First, we have to understand why they're so confusing. First, they're both the same type of word. They're both considered modifiers. Just like both predicate nouns and predicate adjectives have a similar use in a sentence and found in similar places in a sentence, likewise, adjectives and adverbs are both words that give information about or modify the meanings of other words. That's the first reason they're confusing. Second reason they're confusing is because often, like today, they're discussed or taught at the same time. And items taught around the same time are more easily confused than things taught weeks apart. The final reason is simply the words themselves. Because the letters at least similar at the start of the words, it's one more cause for confusion. So we have to start by what we can do. Focus on the words differently, uniquely, what makes them separate, in order to start distinguishing them in our minds and in our writing. So adjectives actually modify or describe nouns or pronouns. Another way to think of it is they actually describe a who or a what in a sentence. Conversely, adverbs modify or add details to verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. Another way to think of those is they also describe where, when, how, and sometimes why. So how do we find them? Well, let's start with what we always do. Find the verb. Then we find a simple subject. And then we're going to find any words that are describing any word in a sentence. If they're words that add detail to the verb, they'd be adverbs. Suggestion is to draw an arrow to those describing words that go from that word to the verb. If they're describing a verb, then they're automatically going to be adverbs. If any words that you draw an arrow to, because they're describing simple subject or any other nouns in a sentence, those are going to be adjectives. Any other remaining detail words, just look at what's used, whether it's subject or verb. If it's modifying a noun or pronoun, then the word describing it is an adjective. If it's modifying a verb, an adjective, or another adverb, then that word is going to be an adverb in the first place. I know this is a little bit confusing, but think of it this way. Most of you are pretty solid in determining what a noun or pronoun is. And so if you know you've got a describing word, it's either going to be a noun, describing a noun or pronoun, thus an adjective, or it isn't. If it isn't describing a noun or pronoun, and you're sure it's a describing word, then you should consider it to be an adverb, at least until you get more confident in explaining your reasons. Don't forget that usually ly words are adverbs. Just make sure you can take off the ly and whatever's left is actually a word. Quickly is an adverb because you can take off ly and quick is an actual word. Whereas if you take off the ly and the word fly, all you have left is a f sound, which quite honestly, it's not something you want to do too much out in public. So that's not actually considered a word, therefore fly is not really an adverb. Also, don't forget that words replaceable by the word very are also adverbs. This is when you're talking about an adverb describing another adverb. If quickly is an adverb, very quickly, very is describing quickly. Any word you can use for very. To, too, really, those kind of words are all going to be considered adverbs too. In other words, start by finding any detail or describing words in a sentence. Draw an arrow to those words they're describing. And just figure out by part of speech what that word is the arrow is pointing to. And that will tell you, according to your definitions, whether that word that the arrow is coming from is an adjective or an adverb. One example is that silly superstitions sneak into common conversations. The verb is sneak. Who or what sneaks? Superstitions is a simple subject. Silly is describing superstitions, and since we know subjects are nouns or pronouns, we know silly is an adjective. What other words do we have? Well, common is a describing word. It's describing conversations. Conversations, as most things that end in ION, are as a noun. So, common describing that noun conversations makes common an adjective. Another example, Fortunato cautiously peered into the extremely dense darkness. Alright, same steps. The verb is peered. Anything describing the verb peered. Well, how did they peer? Well, they cautiously peered. So cautiously, ly again, describes the verb peered, so that's going to be an adverb. What else? Who or what peered? Fortunato is a simple subject. There's no words describing Fortunato, so there's no adjectives for that at least. Other describing words. Well, we have dense describes darkness, and so darkness being a noun, it's a thing. Any SS words are usually nouns. Dense describing darkness makes darkness a noun and dense an adjective. Extremely describes dense, because extremely can also be a synonym for very. So that tells us it's going to be an adverb as well. This was a little quick, but you can do this. Take your time, draw arrows, and ask questions. Good hunting.